Hi, I'm Dan.
And I'm James.
And welcome to the Cornwall Property Podcast, where every week we bring you the latest news, hot topics and guidance around the Cornwall property market.
Stay tuned to be informed, inspired and to have any of your property related questions answered by trusted local property professionals.
Hello, welcome back. I'm Dan.
I'm James.
And we have a very special podcast episode for you guys here today. It's episode 67, believe it or not. Crazy times. Guys, we are here today and we have got a very special guest with us. We have got Rain Brooks from Brooks Estate. Rain, hello.
Hello, hi.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me in.
So we have got Rain here. Rain is going to be sharing loads of value for us. And just how she can help, how her services, how her company can help you guys with your property management, whether it be residential, commercial, and just dropping a number of amazing nuggets of wisdom and information on that.
No pressure there, Rain.
Hopefully I've built this up nicely for you.
Nice drum roll there.
Thank you so much.
That's it.
Just remember, you can get in contact with us on our usual platforms such as Facebook and Instagram. Alternatively, like many of you do, you can send us an email on podcast@cl-property.com. We love hearing from you, and without you guys, we wouldn't have the show. So thank you for everybody who does make contact with us.
Definitely. So as those regular listeners are aware, this is our market update episode. If you're new to the podcast, as you know, we will be coming to you every week. Episodes drop on a Sunday evening, and you can have a little listen. We have a Ask Dan and James episode next week, and this week we're here for the market update. So as you know, we've got Rain here. Rain, when we have guests in here, we like to give you an opportunity to just tell us a little bit about yourself. Who's Rain? Why should people know who Rain is and who Rain or what Brooks Estates does? So yeah, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah,
first,
great.
right?
Thank you. So Brooks Estates is a management agent, and we look after a wealth of different sort of service charge based services. Our predominant market is open space management, and that really is our speciality. So when you live on a housing development where you have to pay a service charge, typically that will go to a managing agent that are based out of county. They will take care of the standard management element of that site. So they will send out landscape gardeners to come in and sort of bring in a lawnmower and leaf blowers and that type of thing. Look after things like insurance and management of those open spaces, roads, pathways, streetlights, that type of thing. And we do all of that, but we also go a stage beyond. So we also partner with a lot of sort of local charities or organisations. We've got a partnership with Cornwall Wildlife Trust, for example. So we will come on and we'll carry out resident engagement days. We'll run projects. We'll look at things like community planting areas, community orchards, community composting areas, which are particularly important where you've got very limited outdoor space. So if you've got blocks of flats, for example, we can put in community composting so that those flats can reduce their waste output and sort of address their carbon footprint in that way. We really tend to lead the market from a very sustainable point of view. We also do things like block management, commercial property management as well. So looking at different sustainable approaches to that management element.
Got you. One thing that really stuck out with ourselves, why we really loved what you guys do at Brooks Estates, is that you don't have to do that.
No,
you don't. It's completely off your own back. So that's just something. It's an added bonus, isn't it? If someone was to get you guys to manage their facilities, their shared space, for example, your management company. For example, I've mentioned to you previously, Ren. We're on a small cul-de-sac, and we pay a management fee. Top of my head, it's like £240 a quarter. Yeah. I think it is off the top of my head, and that is for the joint septic sort of tank and keeping the management of that side. But we don't see our management. I recognise the name of the company because it's always at the top of the invoice. Yeah. But other than that, I could not tell you anything more about them. So the fact that you go out of your way to actually get involved with these people, but and why do you do that?
I think it's really, really important to be visible, to be highly visible, and that benefits the developer, because what that means is if there are issues that arise with the open space, with the common areas, with things like your septic treatment or sewage treatment plants, with your SUDS features for sort of rainwater harvesting, things like that, typically if the residents living there don't have a highly visible managing agent, they'll immediately go to the developer. And developers are busy. That's why they engage managing agents to take care of this type of thing. And historically, managing agents haven't been that visible. They unfortunately haven't been that proactive. And as you say, largely because I suppose you don't really have to. You are typically, as a managing agent, an administrative centre. So you will collect in payments and then distribute them through the service charge to those other suppliers. But I find it very, very important to be really very visible because you're taking that workload off of the developer, but also you're highly benefiting the residents of that development. They know that their community is cared about. They know their community is represented. They know that you are investing in the area that they live in. That's also why we carry out the resident engagement days with our partners like the Cornwall Wildlife Trust, for example, because we'll come on and we'll look at different ways that local sort of environment benefits wildlife. So we can look at putting up bat boxes and then come on and do a bat walk with the children and things like that. So you're really reinvesting in that local community too and the area that they live in.
Definitely. No. One thing that really stands out for me is if you're looking to sell, I think that could be is a USP for your property, your development, potentially as a development, looking from a development side of it. But even as a resident, if you're trying to sell on your property, the management service that you're getting is an added bonus. It's added value.
Absolutely, it's added value. And also it limits any sort of negative value that poor management can bring to your development too. Very often you will see poorly managed sites, and that can devalue your house. It can make it very difficult to sell. If you don't have adequate management in place from a basic accounting point of view, for example, and you can't provide the accounts for the management company, if you can't provide very clear set of accounts for things like the sinking fund, for example, and you can't demonstrate that those mitigating approaches have been put in place, you're going to put buyers off. People aren't going to want to come along and buy that property. So from a very basic administration point of view, it's really important to have an effective and efficient and proactive management company in place. But then, as you say, the added bonus of having a proactive management company that come down and invest in your community, invest in your development, invest in where you live, not only keeping it clean and tidy, which we do, we'll go on and we'll conduct litter picks and things like this, but also looking at things, as I say, like community orchards and those type of benefits. It's going to make your development far more appealing, far more attractive, and can actually add to the value of your property too.
No, definitely.
100%. I've got a leasehold property in a block of flats in Weybridge. I won't mention any names of who manages it because it wouldn't be fair, but it is painful that, albeit there's only 14 flats in the whole block, people are paying, about £78 per calendar month. There's a decent amount of money in the pot. I totally understand there needs to be money spent on accounts at the end of the year, but we never get sight of those accounts. We should do once a year to know actually where the money is going. And it's funny that we don't get those accounts because although my flat's pretty nice and tidy inside, I always like to keep it in good condition and not blow my own trumpet. But when you look on the outside of the building, it is green. Yeah. There are cracks appearing in certain areas where the render's gone horrible. There is definitely problems with the drainage. All the drainage ports, they're all blocked with leaves. It doesn't get jet washed. It's slippy. And if I ever came to sell that, it's not very appealing from the outside at all. In fact, I wouldn't even recommend the agent does a picture from the outside. It's that bad.
That's really upsetting too.
It is. Really and what's even more disappointing and frustrating is that I don't have any control over that management company because there's other people. It's almost like at the AGM we just want to give them the boot, but obviously the trick that they've got is that they own the leasehold as well, so they can't boot themselves out, and it's a horrible position to be in. But when I bought the property, it was about 3 years ago, it was in really good condition, but it's just gone downhill, and it's like, where is all our money going?
And that's the thing, people are becoming more and more aware of this because there unfortunately are inadequate management companies out there that really aren't investing in that sort of role that they have in an appropriate manner. And so it can have a very negative effect. And people are becoming more and more aware of that. So buyers are becoming a lot more savvy and they're asking the right questions. And you want to be able to demonstrate that from our point of view, where we provide service charge accounts. We act with full transparency. We make sure that we provide full detailed projections of your service charge in advance and what we're collecting for.
Making me jealous now.
And then we use third-party accountants to sort of veto all of the accounts to make sure and to qualify that every penny that's been spent has been spent properly and accordingly. And we then circulate that and distribute that to everybody that it relates to. If you've paid some money, you've got every right to see where that's gone and how that's been spent, and to make sure that as a managing agent that's been engaged to act on your behalf, we are taking that role very seriously. So
professionally, it sounds like it's being properly done.
Absolutely, but that should be the minimum standard.
Yeah, I know.
It's bizarre that it's not.
Yeah, but that's where you can separate yourselves from the rest.
Is there a way that James could get out of that? Is there a way around, or the other residents or lessees?
Absolutely. I mean, in that particular situation, it does sound quite difficult if they are the owners of the freehold as well. Typically, a managing agent is not the owner of the freehold. Typically, they're a third party that are engaged by the freeholder. Sometimes the freeholder is a private individual. A lot of the time, the freeholder is a management company. It's a limited company that's set up. And the dwelling owners who pay into that management company are then members. So because the management company is limited by guarantee and not shares, they're members rather than shareholders, but they have the same power. And so if you are a member of that management company, you absolutely can choose which managing agent you use. And so if you're not happy with the service that you're being provided, you can absolutely, as members of that management company, get together, call a general meeting and take steps to remove your existing management company and engage one that you would prefer to come in and look after that space for you.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
you
the
do
big
have
leg
options.
up for us would be that there's about 11,000 coming in, and that does not cost for the accounts because they're not spending anything. So there's not many transactions on there, so it begs the question, and we'll look into that for sure because it got to the point now. It's just like this is silly with spending good money.
It's devaluing your property.
100%, yeah, and the block,
And you're paying for that to happen.
yeah,
It's bizarre.
Yeah, it's horrible, but
Yeah, I can see your frustration, definitely.
Got it out now.
You got it out. You feel better.
I do actually. Yeah,
If you
still
feel
looks
wound up
horrible.
now,
Yeah.
You just failed to say you've actually painted it green now.
Yeah, that's it.
That's one answer.
So anyway, so what we're going to do now, guys, is we're going to share. James, as always, has got an article that's currently been in the market, in the news over the last week or so. I've picked one as well, and we've got Rain has also highlighted an article that's caught her eye that she'd like to discuss with us as well. So I will kick us off as always, and the article which I have chosen here it's very topical at the moment. It's about landlords having a little bit more control, which sounds a bit out of the ordinary, doesn't it? So landlords will be able to evict tenants within 2 weeks for antisocial behaviour. So this is very, very eye-catching sort of headline, really. I know there's been a number of people who have been in touch with us who have had tenants that have just disrespected the property or neighbours or been too loud. A general antisocial behaviour can come in so many shapes and sizes. Now, not tarnishing all. It's like being landlords. Landlords get tarnished with the one brush as you've all got rogue landlords. Well, no, and there's not always rogue tenants. We've got tenants that are fantastic, and I'm sure Rain has as well. I think ultimately, the better you look after your tenants, the better they'll respect you and your property. But anyway, what is this article about? So the government has announced a plan to toughen up rights for landlords looking to evict antisocial tenants as part of the new antisocial behaviour action plan. So the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has unveiled plans to introduce a new property ombudsman. So what is an ombudsman? It's like an impartial body that will help with resolutions on disputes. So, for example, James, landlord, Rain, dodgy tenant, and they can't get to an agreement. I would be, as the ombudsman, you would bring the whole issue to myself as the, and I would then make that decision based on the evidence that you're providing me. So what they're advising and what they're trying to encourage here is that we're going to create a property ombudsman who's basically going to be the impartial seat at the table who will help with the landlord sorting these issues if there is an issue. Just making sure that it's not a begrudgment that a landlord's got of a tenant is actually a legitimate issue that there is actually is happening. So interesting. So the changes are part of a new raft of new measures, including higher fines for offences such as graffiti, fly tipping, certain drugs being used in your properties or on site. So the government has emphasised that where possible, disagreements between landlords and tenants should be settled between them. But they are looking to create a rental industry ombudsman. So it says here, if this approach fails between the tenant and the landlord, they are looking to include an introduction to the rental industry ombudsman. This is an organisation, get my words out, Dan, which would have power to basically make that final decision. So again, there's going to be lots of detail and things to find out. As with always, of all these articles, guys, if you look on the show notes however you're choosing to watch or listen to this podcast, we've got links to each of these articles so you can read a little bit more depth. But ultimately, it sounds positive for a landlord. I've had in the past tenants that have disrespected my property, and I would love nothing more than just to say, look, I'm sorry, this is not working out. I can't have this. You're costing the property. We've got HMOs, so shared houses. If a tenant is disruptive in a HMO, well, if you've got 5 tenants in that property and one is being a real antisocial antisocial sod, it could jeopardise the rest of it for everybody else. So I want that control so I can do something about it. And I don't want to know. Obviously, the concern is you've got people being evicted unfairly, but as long as there's rules and there's evidence and things to back up your reasons, I think this is a good thing for landlords personally.
I think, yeah, absolutely. And I think it also highlights how important it is to have a very responsible, proactive managing agent as well.
Oh, definitely.
Because if you have a proactive agent in place, they should be able to mitigate the risk of this on both sides. So if you have a tenant that is behaving in an inappropriate manner, they should have sort of guidelines and procedures to follow to try to resolve that before it gets to this point. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's, that's the most fair way of approaching this type of thing. Obviously, there's a lot of conversation around tenants getting more rights and sort of more rights to remain in properties. And so therefore it becoming more difficult for landlords to serve notice, which again, there are strong arguments on both sides of that. And this obviously then reassures landlords that if those changes come into place, you do still have the right to retake back your property if you've got the wrong type of tenant in place.
Definitely. No, couldn't agree more. I guess you'll be on the same wavelength.
No, definitely. I think it's just good to have that deterrent there in the first place. I think, like in the workplace, we're very structured. If Dan misbehaves in the company, there is a structure there. We have a chat, and then we have a written warning, and then we have a second chance, third chance. But all jokes aside, that is massively regulated in the workplace. It's very good. It doesn't really seem to exist that much because my only bit to scrutiny on this is like evidence. Well, the tenant said you've done this. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. You go to a bit of a playground syndrome, but I think if you make it clear in your tenancy agreement that, look, now the Ombudsman has brought this in, these are the structure that we use as a company, and if you do, we hear this is how we're going to deal with it. It just, maybe I really should turn that music down at 11 o'clock. So really, they could then go to the next level. It just, like I say, puts in that deterrent.
It might generally be a naive thing. You're like, I didn't realise. Like, generally, they might not be a bad thing, but it's kind of how many steps. They've got to know the outline of the steps, isn't it? What is the structure of this process? As long as that's outlined, I think anyone can query it.
Yeah, and I think that for this type of thing to become an issue, it would have to get to such a level that it is demanding a complaint from a third party as well. And it's so easy to evidence that nowadays. Everyone's got phones with cameras that record. If you've got somebody playing loud music at 11:30 at night, refusing to turn it off, you've got the evidence that you can supply and provide. It's going to be very difficult for somebody to make a spurious claim about this antisocial behaviour and not being able to back it up.
Yeah. I smile there. Only just literally one of our blocks of flats in Medford, because they actually had that call at about 10:45 about 3 weeks ago. I was actually on annual leave at the time when it came in, but I managed to sort it. But it's I think it'll be good to kind of regulate it, really.
Definitely.
Make them clear before they move in, and hopefully you won't get so much.
James, what have you got for us?
Nothing exciting, I'm afraid. But surprise, surprise. My headline is Bank of England raises base rate to 4.25%, which is the highest that we've seen in 14 years. The Bank of England is in a difficult predicament, the report says, on mortgage strategy. On one hand, inflation in February unexpectedly increased, leaving the UK inflation higher than the US and the Eurozone. The report notes large and volatile moves in the global finance. Some of you may be aware that you've seen in the news recently with the failure of the Silicon Valley Bank and the acquisition of Credit Suisse that was rescued by UBS in particular being highlighted, but adds that the Financial Policy Committee believes that the UK banking system remains robust, capital and strong in its liquidity positions, which is good for the UK. That's nothing to worry about, guys, that they're saying. But then again, on the other hand, there are some signs that previous increases are weakening the housing sector and hurting the economy. Added to that, the recent banking turmoil is in itself just like a pressure. The report basically says, we believe the bank has sought to balance the considerations whilst remaining clear that the managing the inflation down is the key responsibility, which we all know. Yeah. But I know it's not in these headlines this week, but we have seen that house prices are coming down across the UK, not just in Cornwall, just, in places. But people also forget that it has come from a time where house prices are shot up, so it's not really relevant at the moment. But I think it's no big surprise, really. Like, mortgage rates are soaring at the highest they've been in 14 years. That's clear. And the idea is to put people off buying. So what happens? The demand, eases off. The supply is higher. So then prices come down a little bit. But I personally think we're okay in terms of the banking. Well, it's not going to collapse here, but I think people have just got the same demeanour of they're holding out. They're going to wait and see what happens.
Would agree.
Any thoughts?
Yeah,
on
I
it?
think that when you couple that with the cost of living crisis and the fact that mortgages are becoming more and more expensive, then obviously it's just one of those times when everyone just has to sit tight and ride it out and just wait for things to settle. The one thing that is a slight concern is obviously the first-time buyer market.
Yes.
Because now you have the Help to Buy scheme has ended, so there's no support from the government for first-time buyers now.
Yeah.
And obviously taking out mortgages at this point in time is not going to be attractive. So you've got more and more people staying at home, living with their parents. I've got a 17-year-old, and so I hope that this resolves itself well within the next sort of 5 to 10 years.
Well, we haven't asked
Keep strong, Rain. Keep strong.
I don't want him at home until he's 30. Thanks very much. But yeah, I mean, the market has been incredibly overinflated. We've seen that after COVID, particularly here in Cornwall. Some of the sales prices that we were seeing were really eye-watering. And something has to happen to balance the market back out again. So we're expecting it, I think.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the kind of the feel I'm getting. Like it's no big surprise that people are just going to hold out, and that there may be another hike. But
I think it also depends on what your situation is really as well, because like us, we're investors. This is our day job. This is our company. It's our business. What does this mean for us? Well, we've still got money that we want to invest. We're still hungry. Look at the picture. People need property. There's not enough housing on the market for residential private lettings.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
what does this mean? If Joe Blogs and basically the main market is not as hot, well, that means there's more opportunity for an investment deal to be done, as far as I'm
absolutely.
concerned. So where people are fearful, I think that's a great opportunity for you to get invest. But obviously, at the same time, you need to know your numbers. You need to do your homework. You need to do your research. Always speak to your professional advisors anywhere and whatever you're looking to do. But I see this for us as a positive, as an investment side of things, because I think there'll be opportunities that come off the back of this, and people will be like, oh, opportunistic. But at the same time, this is what makes the world go round. I think if you're looking to invest in property and you've got some liquid or you've got some investment behind you, then I think there's a good opportunity that could be on the horizon for you, if not already, because ultimately we know people can't afford to not as many people can afford to actually take these mortgages out and things like that at the minute. Well, if a property's on the market, it kind of tells me that people are needing to sell. There's a reason behind it that it's on the market because they need to sell, which means that there's more of an opportunity to get yourself a good deal.
Yeah.
So you just got to see if you can be that person that can offer that solution really to someone's problem.
Absolutely.
So I think just spinning a little bit of a positive on it, I think there could be opportunities from the investment side as well.
Absolutely, be clear with your negotiations. You know, look, nobody else is buying it at the moment. It's been on for 4 months or whatever. Look, you know, I'm a proper investor here. I've got cash ready to go, proof of funds. You know, let's do a deal, and hopefully that they can bring another. You know,
so you're not trying to fleece people. You're not trying to do anything
No,
untoward.
God,
It's
no.
literally a case of look, you've got a product which is a property. You're looking to sell it. Well, I've got cash and I'd like to buy it.
Yeah, and it's not
if you're
selling at the moment.
No, and if you're happy with this figure, brilliant. Then I'm happy to pay it. As simple as that. It's worth what someone is simply willing to pay for it.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
So I think that's just something to maybe do as a positive spin on it, really. But yeah, there's loads of different ways to look at it. But there's definitely opportunities on the horizon, I feel, this year.
Absolutely.
Rain,
Yes.
what have we got? So we have got an article here. Again, the link is in the show notes. But talk us through what you've got for us.
So I've come to the table with something a little bit different. Obviously, my business is very much focused on sustainability. Brooks Estates is predominantly open space and block management, but I also do have a background in commercial property management as well. And sustainability is becoming more and more prevalent in the commercial business world, in commercial property language as well. And I just find it really interesting that we now have things like green leases that are becoming more and more popular. They're being talked about more and more. As you're seeing businesses taking their environmental impact responsibilities more seriously, they're looking at the way that they are using their properties. And most businesses don't have the luxury of owning the properties that they occupy. They are leased. And so you have commercial landlords who are being approached, and these conversations are being had around the environmental impact that the use of these buildings is having. So green leases, or the softer version, a memorandum of understanding, are a way for a landlord and a commercial occupier to look at mitigating the sort of environmental impact that property has. And that's in several different ways. So you look at the type of consumption, so utility consumption that you have and whether that's renewable. You look at the type of waste that you sort of have as an output. offices aren't going to have too much of a waste output, whereas you've got things like healthcare facilities where they've got a lot of single-use plastic and disposable gloves and things like this. So it's looking at sort of ways of addressing that waste and the output. The water usage is a big one as well, particularly here in the southwest at the moment. You know, we're still in a hosepipe ban from last summer, so water usage is
hard
really
to believe the amount of
Isn't
rain
it?
in March, I
Yeah.
must say, but the reservoirs are still
they're still very,
relatively low.
very low, and we're about to head back into another summer, and goodness knows what sort of temperatures we're about to see. So water use and water waste particularly are big key areas to look at and to identify ways to address those. And also, you know, your environmental impact on your carbon output, greenhouse gases, things like that too. So if you can work together with your landlord and put steps in place where they are either legally binding through a green lease, and you can have clauses put into green leases where if you as an occupier meet your environmental impact targets, you can look at a rent review where the landlord gives an incentive and reduces your rent slightly to sort of support that if you're hitting those targets, which is a great thing. It's fantastic for the environment and sustainability. Or you can have a memorandum of understanding, which is where you just kind of come to an agreement where you both try your best and you both support each other to hit those targets. And as we're moving forward and as we're getting closer to sort of 2030, 2050, these big sort of target years for looking at reducing our environmental gas output and things like that, there are more and more obligations being put onto businesses. And so I think that this topic is going to become more and more prevalent in the commercial property world. So it's quite useful for people just to sort of have a bit of an understanding, a bit of an awareness around it, and look at ways to introduce that into their business.
So in simple terms as well, excuse my naivety around it, so a green lease is simply, it's a standard lease, but you've got green emphasis in certain areas, isn't it? That's what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, you
just
have
try and
clauses.
encourage, right?
Yeah.
I understand.
So
Okay.
if and those clauses apply to both the occupier and the landlord. So let's say that there are some works that need to take place year 5 into the lease. The landlord needs to come on and they have to carry out some works to the building. They are bound by the lease to use sort of local sustainable materials, local providers, local contractors, have, you know, minimise their impact, their environmental impact in carrying that work out on the building. Or they'll be obliged to provide solar panels or EV charging points. So the onus is on both parties.
And with your company, Brooks Estates, is that something that you offer as well? You help with the lease writing on that side of things?
We use very, very good solicitors who draw up all the leases for the commercial side of things. But we offer. We don't push, we don't insist, but we offer and we encourage. And we're seeing those conversations more and more frequently now as people are taking their environmental responsibility more seriously, because it's becoming less of a choice and definitely more of a responsibility. We all have a responsibility to make sure that our daily impact, both personally and professionally, is addressed and reduced, because, you know, we are heading into quite an unstable time with the environment, and we all need to do our bit in making sure that we're sort of limiting that damage.
Absolutely. And I think regardless to inflation or not, people are still spending money on certain things because not just a feel-good factor. They want to be a part of this, you know, this greener planet that
Absolutely.
we live on. So it's a great time to be involved with that.
Most definitely.
And I think you're ahead of the rest of the competition, really, because not many people are doing it, are they? So
no, and I hope that in being a market leader in doing that, we will inspire the others to do it.
Set the standard.
Exactly
100%.
that. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, on the residential side of things with the open space management, we do, during our resident engagement days, we'll look at things like carbon reduction techniques in the home. All of our welcome packs are sent out. If they have to be sent out hard copy, they're sent out via sort of Royal Mail all at once, so there's only one delivery round, and they all include a packet of wildflower seeds that we encourage people to plant to just offset that small carbon footprint of that van coming to your development. All of our packs are fully compostable. Even the film in the envelopes is compostable. It's not plastic. You know, we really spend a lot of time and energy trying to make sure that we're looking at every step. Yeah,
that's really good.
Yeah.
No, it's encouraging to hear. And again, it's a great USP as well.
Well, it is, because it matters. You know, it's important. And everybody that works for Brooks Estates, the first question that we ask is, you know, about their passion for the natural environment, because all of the administrative side can be taught, but that genuine passion has to be there from the first sort of instance. So,
No, sounds brilliant. No, love it. You guys, if you want to know more, obviously there's the article show notes. Sorry, the article is in the show notes, and obviously we'll make sure we get Rain's details at the end of the podcast so you can get in touch to find out more that way. So guys, this is part of the episode now that we're going to look at our picks of the week. So those regular listeners will see and know that Dan, I've got a commercial property, which is a current vacant property that is on the commercial market here in Cornwall that we think is ripe for bringing it and converting it to some sort of residential and helping that Cornwall housing crisis bring some more private rental onto the market. And James has got a residential version for us. So I will kick us off again. If you're viewing on YouTube, you can see this in real time. You can see the article. We're going to go through it now, or the link on Rightmove, should I say. If you are listening, then once you've stopped driving, get yourself on the show notes, and there's a link to the properties on there too. So I have got here, guys, a former shop with a 2-bedroom flat over the top. It's in Mullion as well. It's not actually too bad condition, which is encouraging, and it's a bit of an unusual one for me. But the flat looks like it's ready to go, to be fair. Maybe some little updates. There is a video tour. This is on the first floor, and on the ground floor there was a shop. So what I'm thinking here is you could essentially mirror the upstairs apartment downstairs and add yourself an additional flat. What also caught my eyes, I don't know the market so well in Mullion personally, but I thought that the price was quite an interesting price there to get 2 potential properties for 230,000. Looked like a bit of an eye-grabbing figure for me there. But as you can see, it's fairly spacious, lovely area, great double-fronted property here. As the regular viewers and listeners will know, I am a keen floor plan lover. So if I flick onto the floor plan, you can see what I mean here by literally replicating the upstairs. So we've got the ground floor on the left, you've got the first floor up on the right. You can see here, where could you add some value? Again, what do you reckon, James? Adding value here. I reckon maybe it's not a lot. I don't think you can do here, really. I think 2 bedrooms, I don't think you can really add much more cosmetically. And upstairs doesn't look like it needs a lot thrown at it. Downstairs, however, obviously you're going to need some planning. Again, beauty is it's not listed, so you haven't got to worry about the heritage side of things. But I think there's no reason why you couldn't, in essence, sort of replicate where you could the floor plan from upstairs, another 2-bed property downstairs, doubling the value. Again, get yourself a good managing agent. Don't suppose you know one, Rain, to look after it for you.
Absolutely.
And I think there could be some money
Mullion's
to
a
be made
great
here.
Yeah, a lot of locals as well in Mullion, which is nice. It's a really nice location for sure. I'm not too far from there, and I think it's got a lot of legs.
Yeah, no, brilliant. So, guys, if you're interested in that one, you can contact Christopher's estate agents in Helston. James has dealt with them a few times and said that they've always been very helpful.
Yeah,
and,
very on the ball. Yeah, good
responsive.
agent for sure.
It's fantastic. So that one is in the show notes if you are interested. James, what have you got for us?
I have got a property not too far from the centre of Truro on Trevanion Court. It's a 2-bed, 1-bathroom, end of terrace freehold property currently on with Philip Martin. It's fairly fresh to the market, coming on the 28th of March, so quite recent. It's definitely something that it's a full renovation job, but looking at the photos and the plastering, I think a sort of renovation was started here and then maybe money ran out, which is maybe not unheard of in the times we're living in at the moment. But yeah, 2 bedrooms, bathroom, sitting room, kitchen, dining room. It's also got a rear garden, which, although a bit of a mess, a decent day's graft there, I think you can have a really good backyard.
It's a lovely big plot, isn't it?
It is, and it's kind of on the end as well, it being end terrace, looks quite quiet. It's in a nice little cul-de-sac, and it's got an encircling communal parking area as well. So it has got parking, which is a bonus. But I think the price is fairly fair at 175. I did do a little bit of homework. There was stuff going there sort of 3 years ago at about the 175 mark. So I think there's definitely value to be added, and naturally, I think it's a good price where it is at the moment. I don't know whether it will be around for very long, but yeah, I don't think the renovation's too intense. What do you think, Dan?
No, not at all. EPC is very low mind. Obviously needs a nice juicy increase there.
Yeah, it's got the old night storage heater bricks I can see in one of the photos out the back, but that's got opportunity there, hasn't it, to put in quantum night storage heaters, which we know.
You could put some nice renewable on there as well, couldn't you?
Certainly could.
Yeah,
Here we go. Now you're off.
There we go.
And she's off. No, exactly. What sort of things would you be advising in this sort of instance, Rain? What would you think? Obviously, renewables, you'd be thinking here, solar.
Absolutely, solar or air source heat pump, because if at the moment it's not on gas heating, then there are actually grants out there that are available to put in things like air or ground source heat pumps, which would be a much better, much more sort of sustainable way of heating a property like that. Some solar panels as well.
So the only stipulation I put in there as well is, although you can, well, it looks like they've maybe have increased the insulation. So obviously, from my experience, I've got an air source heat pump as well. And from a load of research I've done is, if you're retrofitting an air source heat pump, you need to make sure you've got thermally upgraded your externals.
Absolutely.
The fabric is so important because you can have the most efficient air source heat pump, but if your property is continually leaking heat, it is a completely counterproductive process.
Absolutely.
So if you're going down that route, definitely look to thermally
Most
upgrade
definitely,
everywhere.
particularly down here in Cornwall, we don't have the most airtight buildings.
No, not so. But no, great points there. Great price as well. So really eye-grabbing price there. So again, Philip Martin, and the link is in the show notes. So guys, that is it for today's episode. Thank you so much, Rain, for joining us.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
No, and you're going to be sticking around, and you're going to join us for next week's episode as well. So,
indeed. Yes.
Can't wait for that one. So thank you very much for joining us.
Absolutely. Just remember, you can get in contact with us going onto our social media platforms such as Facebook and Instagram. Failing that, you can contact us on podcast at cl-property.com. And remember, if you want to get in contact with Rain, what is the best way our viewers and listeners can do that?
So we have our website, which is www.brooks, BROOKS, estates.co.uk. We are on Instagram, and our handle is Brooks_Estates. We are on Facebook as well, Brooks Estates. There's a Brooks Estates LinkedIn page, and I personally am on LinkedIn as well, Rain Brooks. So yeah, please do get in touch.
No, brilliant. It's really great to hear about all the stuff you're doing, especially from the sustainability aspect.
You.
It's a really nice age, and I think it's just a world that we live in. So
Definitely.
No, it's really good point there.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you. Well, guys, until next time, thank you very much for listening and joining us, and it's a goodbye from me.
goodbye from me.